You allowed Maul to kill him.
You lost an apprentice, and so did I.
Hey, he sounds familiar.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Now when it comes to Star Wars, me and a lot of other people grew up with a little show called... and I loved it. This show was my childhood and I learned to appreciate it more as an adult. It was a great animated series that fixed a lot of the problems the prequel trilogy had. I was sad when the show got cancelled due to the Disney overlords rising to power, but then season 7 hit and by God was it amazing. Sort of. This was set to be the final season of Clone Wars and I was a tad disappointed with that. This was mostly because we were only getting 3 arcs to finish the show, with the first one being okay, the second one being lame, and the final one being a masterpiece. 3 arcs didn't seem like enough for one season though, and that's because there was so many other arcs to explore. A lot of the unfinished arcs are on YouTube with poor animation, but the voice acting is there at least. I wanted so much more Clone Wars content, but this was set to be the final one, so I just made my peace with it, and assumed we weren't going to get any more shows of a similar type. Thankfully I was wrong though. The Bad Batch surprised everyone, and it was pretty good. Some slow and forgettable parts, but I enjoyed it. To be honest, I don't really like Rebels too much, but it does have some great moments in it that reminded me why Clone Wars was awesome, so there's that. Then Tales of the Jedi got announced, and I was so hyped. Origin stories for both Dooku and Ahsoka? That sounded epic. I was kinda hoping we'd be getting full-length episodes instead of shorts, but what we got was okay. Let's talk some Tales. I'll start with the Ahsoka storyline. The first episode was alright. Not much happens, and you could kind of gather everything from the trailer what this part would be about. Ahsoka's born, they learn she's force sensitive, and that's kind of it. Not really much to say about it. The second episode, though, was by far my favorite. For one, the fanboy in me came out seeing the old Clone Wars gang. It was awesome seeing them in their early Clone Wars gear, but with the updated animation. I love the fact that we're actually seeing Ahsoka getting trained for once. A lot of Star Wars conversations between Jedi always go like, remember what I taught you, and remember your training, but we've never actually seen it before, besides just deflecting lasers from a flying ball. Here, though, Anakin is actually trying to teach Ahsoka a specific thing, try to prepare her for the worst case scenarios when she needs to be fighting something that aren't droids. I love the use of clones being the one she practices with, and then we transition as seeing that training being put to the test during Order 66. A lot of people made that meme of, oh, she's definitely gonna need that, but then they actually showed it. It was just awesome to see, and that made me happy. Her last episode, though, was definitely the weakest of the entire show. Seeing her after Order 66, trying to retire and live a peaceful life only to get exposed and want to fight again sounds cool, but the execution was a little off. This episode just desperately needed to be longer as it's pretty rushed. Her little arc of wanting to join the fight again was pretty weak. She's living peacefully on a farm, but then after one brief moment with an Inquisitor, she decides, okay, it's time to head back to war. Like, what? I think it would have been more natural if she saw a bunch of incidents where the Empire is abusing their power. Ahsoka tries to ignore as hard as she can. She keeps to herself, but eventually can't fight the urge to sit at the sidelines anymore and acts out. That's much more of a natural progression besides just living the normal life and deciding to join the rebellion after one bad encounter with the police. Also, that fight with the Inquisitor was just lame. This guy was pretty hyped up in the trailer with that badass design, his voice, and the fact we've never seen this Inquisitor before.
What are you looking at?
It would have been really cool to see Ahsoka fight someone with a lightsaber without one of her own. She's also been retired for a while, so she might be a bit rusty. But no, she owns him in one move and that's it. This episode really needed to be longer and needed more time to flesh out the themes it was trying to present. Now let's move on to Dooku. Remember when I said the Clone Wars tried to improve a lot of the prequel stuff? Yeah, Dooku is not one of those things. His role in the show is pretty much the same one he had in Attack of the Clones. We don't really know much about him and he's just there for a cool lightsaber fight. We do get a lot of him in the show, but he's never really been explored. He desperately needed an origin story, and thankfully Tales of the Jedi provides. I like that we get 2 episodes dedicated to why Dooku was slowly turning to the dark side, and that his reason for portrayal is very similar to Anakin's. He didn't agree with how the Jedi operated and what they were doing. I think the runtime of the episodes is fine for him, but I think we just needed more episodes for Dooku. I think seeing how he found Palpatine and how they came working together would be interesting. Because from what the 3rd episode showed us, Dooku knew of Palpatine and Maul, and he knew that his old apprentice Qui-Gon was going to fight him. I think it would have been interesting to know what deal he made with them, as well as what he thought he was getting out of it, because it's clear from episode 3 that he didn't know he was going to get replaced with Anakin. Other than that, it was a solid arc for him, and I'm glad he finally gets some much needed development. The animation for this show is pretty good. I've always enjoyed the Clone Wars style, and it gets better with every iteration. Season 7 looked perfect, and the Bad Batch somehow made Perfect look better. Tales of the Jedi looks fine, but it's slightly off. I can't really explain why, but it just looks and feels a little different. There are a few moments when the animation looks a little cheap, so maybe this show just had a smaller budget, but it looks great most of the time. The main star of the art style has always been the environments for me. They look incredible. Clone Wars to me always looked like it was a painting, and the environments capture that a lot. They also updated the design of some of the characters. They gave them more realistic proportions instead of the lankiness of the original show. Some faces got updated to not be so exaggerated, except Yoda, who now looks weird because they made Yaddle look fine. The music also goes hard. It's very whimsical and peaceful at times, but then it goes... This music went through my soul. Overall, it's a decent set of shorts. I don't have a lot to say about them. There's only 6 episodes and none of them reach 20 minutes, so you can finish this in like an hour. I'm hoping we get more of these, but with different Jedi, because that would be cool to see. I'm just glad Filoni is able to get away with making more Clone Wars content by just not calling them Clone Wars seasons. This will always be my favorite type of Star Wars content, and I hope we get more in the future. So this, let me, 7 out of 10.